Welcome to another NUCIDA video. If you like it, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and click the bell. Never forget our upcoming sessions. If you have any questions or hints, please leave a comment. Our certified QA experts will reply in time. It's never been easier to manage tests at scale than with Xray Test Management. Xray is a Jira native software test management app that ensures your testing and development teams are collaborating to achieve the highest quality products. With Xray, you'll never deliver broken or untested code again. Xray is a comprehensive test management solution that uses Jira native issue types to specify, organize, plan, and execute tests. With Xray, you can create your tests and add preconditions, organize them using the test sets or the test repository, plan your test strategy, and finally execute tests and report the status. Today, I want to give you a demo about the Xray Enterprise solution. Before the demo, I will give you an overview of Xray Enterprise functions. Customers ask us some questions about this interesting tool I want to answer in detail after my tool demonstration. At the end of the video, I will give you an outlook on the next features of Xray Enterprise that will be released soon. Now, I want to introduce Xray Enterprise's key features. To start with the test case version, something that our customers greatly appreciate here, and it will allow you to have different versions of a test case specification or even different test types within the same test case. We'll look at that for a little while. The dynamic test plans, which will allow you to use JQL queries or JQL filters as input into those test plans. This will certainly save you time in the overhead required to manage test plans. Cross-project reporting is great if you want to use the built-in reports to report on multiple projects at the same time. Maybe you have an umbrella project comprised of several of these projects, and this is where cross-project really is a time saver. Furthermore, the remote job triggers and test case designer that I will go through in the demonstration. We should not forget the enterprise support, like I said. That does provide you with much more aggressive SLAs, but I'll go through that in just a little while. Alright, as mentioned, we're going to spend the next couple of minutes going over one of the premier features of Xray Enterprise, which is the test case designer. Once you've downloaded Xray Enterprise, installed it, and configured it properly, you'll see Test Case Designer on the left-hand side. When you click on that, it will open Test Case Designer in a new tab. At a high level, as mentioned earlier, Test Case Designer is a test design optimization tool built into Xray Enterprise. This tool addresses many manual efforts you might currently undertake during your test planning phase, creating tests, writing tests, and deciding how much coverage is enough for a given effort. It is designed to optimize these efforts in several ways. This is an efficiency tool, and through its algorithm within any given model, it provides objectively more thorough test cases and scenarios designed to cover what matters most in terms of coverage. The algorithm achieves this with as few test cases or scenarios as possible. When using this tool, you can confidently aim for more thorough, greater coverage while completing it in fewer tests. This leads to significant efficiency gains. Now, getting into it, when you first open Test Case Designer, you'll see a dashboard. This is essentially a view of all your existing work. You'll see your list of models and projects for the models you've placed inside. If you're going through a trial and want to explore existing work, we provide sample models covering various use cases across industries and testing types. You can copy these models and build on them or create new ones during your trial. Returning to my models for this demo, I'll access an existing model and keep it simple to focus on the main points about the tool's benefits and features. When you create a model, you'll initially work with a relatively blank slate. In this example, let's consider the scope of the model, a highly simplified airline ticket reservation system. Here, we go through the process of selecting options for ticket reservation, processing the ticket, and producing it. The goal is to functionally test the scope. So that's my end goal here. In this example, again, it's very simplified, but let's say these are parameters I've defined, where you're flying from, where you're flying to, and the ticket class you're selecting. Of course, all of these elements matter in an airline ticket reservation system. They're important to test because depending on your choices, a different ticket will be generated for you. It makes sense to include these ideas as parameters. This collection of parameters and this model define the ideas that will be included in the ultimately optimized scenarios generated by the algorithm. Because of this, the first and most important step is defining these ideas. To address a couple more points, how do you add these ideas? You can do so directly in the UI by providing parameters and assigning values. You can also use a text-based method to add ideas. Once you have sources of information, you extract what's critical to test from them, define the model, and the tool takes care of the rest, generating optimized scenarios, writing scripts, building analysis reports, and more. To gather these ideas, I mentioned straightforward ways to technically add them in the tool. Let me cover another aspect of the step: populating and using mind maps. Inside the tool, as you build out your parameters model on the previous screen, a mind map is automatically generated. What is a mind map? While it may seem simple, user feedback has shown it to be a powerful tool. A mind map is a clear, easy to read, and easy to communicate visualization of what's covered in your scenarios. It also highlights what's critical to test based on the requirements extracted from the sources of information. You can use this visualization to collaborate effectively. For example, you can present it to a business analyst, client stakeholder, or manager and say, "Here's what I believe is critical to test for the scope. Here's how I'm defining those ideas with parameter values. What do you think? Can I get feedback?" This tool facilitates conversation and collaboration. After gathering feedback, you can update your model. Users have reported that this step helps align business and technical teams, bridging communication gaps. By taking this step, all parties can ensure they're on the same page about requirements and critical test areas. Once you receive feedback, the process is simple. Return to your parameters, update what's necessary, add new parameters if needed, or redefine ideas based on the feedback. These changes will automatically reflect in the generated scenarios, scripts, analysis reports, and more. All of this is designed to save you time. Now that we've covered defining parameters, at any point in the process, you can click the Scenarios button to generate optimized scenarios or test cases. Let's talk about optimization and what happens when you click that button. When you hover over the eye icon, it displays the total possible scenario count. This number represents how many scenarios it would take to test everything based on the defined model. For instance, in this example, there are exactly 162 possible scenarios to test everything. As your models grow with more parameters and values, this number can exponentially increase into the millions, billions, or even trillions. This phenomenon is called a combinatorial explosion, representing all the possibilities that could be tested. How do we focus on what's critical to test? That's where the algorithm comes in. In this example, the algorithm has reduced 162 possible scenarios to just 13 optimized scenarios while still covering 76 unique interactions. What do we mean by interactions, and what is the algorithm doing? The tool uses combinatorial or pairwise approaches to generate these scenarios. At a high level, research in software testing has shown that focusing on interactions, covering every parameter value and every pair of parameter values at least once, catches most defects. Defects are often triggered by interactions between parameters. By covering every single parameter value and every pair of values at least once, you can efficiently identify defects. This approach delivers significant coverage with fewer tests. The algorithm ensures 100% coverage of all interactions within the defined parameters model and does so in as few scenarios as mathematically possible. This means achieving greater coverage in fewer tests. All these scenarios are as highly varied as possible to maximize coverage per test. This ensures you fill in gaps in coverage and catch as many defects as possible early in the process. By addressing defects early, you prevent them from slipping into production, user acceptance testing, systems integration testing, or other later stages where they become much more expensive to fix. This baseline coverage strength is referred to as two-way interactions. However, you have options on the screen to increase the level of thoroughness. For example, you could generate a set of three-way tests. With these three-way tests, there are now 33 scenarios covering 200 unique interactions. This means every three-way interaction or every possible group of three-parameter values within the defined model is covered. Three-way and four-way defects are less common than two-way or one-way defects. Because of this, I often advise users to have a clear reason for increasing coverage strength. However, the tool provides flexibility to adjust based on your needs. A particularly useful feature is the mixed strength option. Many of our best users rely on this option because it aligns with risk-based testing efforts. It allows you to adjust the level of thoroughness for individual parameters. For example, you may want to be more thorough in areas prone to risk or known to have defects. You can apply three-way testing to these parameters. In other areas, you might stick with two-way testing for good coverage or even reduce to one-way testing to deprioritize less critical areas. This flexibility lets you adjust test case counts while ensuring the necessary coverage for high-priority areas. Using the mixed strength option, you can tailor your test cases to meet your needs. In this example, with adjustments, the total scenario count increased to just 18, striking a balance between thoroughness and efficiency. This flexibility ensures that you prioritize the right areas and optimize coverage in the most important scenarios. This scenario generation process brings many benefits, including significant time savings, improved coverage, and optimized test planning efforts. It ensures you're running the right scenarios for either manual execution or automation. Now, let's quickly review a couple of other steps in the process before we move on to other Xray Enterprise features. One key feature inside the Test Case Designer is the Rules section, particularly the constraints. Some of you may wonder, what if there are impossible to test combinations or interactions that shouldn't appear in the scenarios? You can use the constraint screen to identify and exclude such scenarios. For instance, in an airline ticket reservation system, let's say you only want to book international flights and not domestic flights. In this example, I've identified invalid pairs, shown in red, by clicking the red XS. These invalid pairs ensure such interactions will never appear in the generated scenarios. Conversely, you can define bound pairs using green arrows. Bound pairs allow you to create when-then rules. For example, when this value appears, it must always be paired with that other value. You can add as many invalid or bound pairs as needed to enforce your testing rules. Beyond constraints, the tool also offers an analysis section. A standout feature is the coverage matrix, which allows you to view the exact coverage achieved after running the first X number of test cases. In this example, the slider shows the exact coverage achieved after running the first 8 test cases. Test cases that have been generated for us show that we're already at nearly 83% coverage. The tool provides this information clearly. Using the coverage matrix, you can hover over any square to interpret the data. Green squares represent interactions covered after the first 8 tests. When you hover over a green square, it displays the interaction and when it was first covered. Red squares indicate interactions not yet covered. Hovering over these shows what the interaction is and when it will be covered for the first time. Black squares denote the constraints you've added. These interactions will never be tested together and will always remain black. As you run more scenarios, you'll notice more green and less red until you achieve 100% coverage. The coverage matrix eliminates guesswork, allowing you to determine how much testing is sufficient for a given effort. Without this tool, gaining such insights independently can be challenging. For example, imagine presenting this data to a manager. You might say, after our first 7 tests, we're already at 76% coverage. Given our time constraints, I can identify exactly what we'd be missing if we stopped testing now. I'm comfortable with this level of risk. What do you think? This facilitates data-driven discussion. You can make informed decisions, optimize execution efforts, and move forward confidently. Next, let's look at scripting capabilities, which transition optimized scenarios from Test Case Designer back into Xray and Xray Enterprise for continued testing activities. There are 2 main aspects of scripting. Here's how manual execution scripts work. 1. Write one set of steps as a template. 2. Parameterize the steps by pulling in parameters from your model using a drop-down. 3. These steps remain simple and adaptable to your execution style. Once parameterized, the scenarios below show how the script applies to each generated scenario. Upon synchronizing with Xray, you'll see a test created for each optimized scenario, complete with a set of steps. This saves time and streamlines the process. For automation, the scripting feature aligns with Gherkin, Cucumber, and Behavior-Driven Development, BDD. You start with a blank slate and build Gherkin steps describing what you're testing and how you're testing it. Parameterize the steps using placeholders from your model. Preview the final output in Xray or as an exported feature file. This approach applies a single script to all applicable test cases, creating steps tailored to each scenario. A scenario outline option generates a data table automatically, where rows represent optimized scenarios. You can include all parameters or specific ones, write multiple scenarios, and export multiple feature files as needed. Once your scripts are built, you can synchronize them back to Xray. On the synchronization page, you specify which scripts to pull, e.g., manual or automated, custom test names and descriptions for Xray, the Jira project to which the tests belong, and test types, e.g., manual, BDD. You can create new test sets or plans, add to existing ones, or leave them unassociated. Synchronization takes only a few moments. Once synchronized, the generated tests and steps appear in Xray, ready for use. If we maintain our test cases, we may consider several versions of the same test case. In Xray Enterprise, test case versioning addresses two scenarios. 1. Support for different software versions. If multiple customers use different software versions, you may need to apply patches and execute the same tests initially used for those versions, possibly adding new ones. 2. Automation without losing prior specifications. When automating test cases, you may want to maintain all test runs within a single test case specification. Changing test types in Xray standard may overwrite the previous specification, but versioning retains all past executions for different test case versions. With Xray Enterprise installed, the interface looks like Xray standard, but includes additional features like test case versioning and other tools for streamlined testing processes. The first feature allows you to create new versions, rename existing ones, and manage them further, such as selecting which version should be considered the default. In this case, here I am looking at version 1, where I can see 3 test steps defined for this version. Now, if I move over to a different version, let's move to version 2, what I will see is that it is identical to the first version, but with a new step added. This means I am maintaining the same test case, but with different versions containing varying specifications in the manual test steps. I can go even further. In version 3, I have changed the test type altogether, moving from a manual test case to a generic, structured type of test. Despite these changes, all executions, including those from previous versions, are still visible within the same test case. Test case versioning is highly beneficial for companies that manage multiple software versions across different customers, operate in complex development and testing environments that require multiple test case versions. Now, let's jump to another interesting Xray Enterprise feature. Dynamic test plans are a time-saving feature in Xray Enterprise, reducing the overhead required to manage test plans and allowing you to work smarter. There are 2 ways to configure test plans. 1. Static test plans, the traditional approach, available on Xray standard where you manually add test sets or individual test cases to your test plan and update them as needed. 2. Dynamic test plans available exclusively in Xray Enterprise using Jira filter definitions to dynamically include test cases based on specific criteria. For instance, a saved filter might select test cases with the label Dynamic Trigger. Whenever a test case with this label is added, it is automatically included in the test plan. Consider a dynamic test plan filtered for test cases with the label Dynamic Trigger. Initially, this plan shows 3 test cases. Removing the label from one of the test cases excludes it from the test plan, exemplifying how dynamic filtering simplifies management. Dynamic test plans are only as accurate as the Jira filters you create. Ensure the filters include the required test cases and exclude everything else. Remote Job Trigger is the next feature I want to highlight that allows you to run jobs directly from within Xray, eliminating the need to switch between applications like CI/CD tools. To configure your jobs, navigate to the Xray settings under Project Settings and locate the Remote Job Trigger section. Available connectors include Jenkins, Bamboo, GitHub, GitLab, and Azure DevOps, with plans to expand support based on user requests. For example, a GitHub trigger can be configured to run workflows in a GitHub project. Credentials and parameters, like issue IDs, can be specified for precise setup. Once the jobs are set, you can trigger jobs from the test plan via a drop-down menu. For instance, 1. Add a label, e.g. Remote Job Trigger, to relevant test cases. 2. Trigger the job from Xray. 3. The results, e.g. passed/failed, are reflected in the dynamic test plan. This integration streamlines workflows and improves efficiency by allowing direct job execution within Xray. Besides these impressive tools, there are some other additional features available in Xray Enterprise I want to pinpoint now. 1. Cross-project reporting that generates consolidated reports across multiple projects. This feature is solely available in Xray Enterprise Data Center. 2. Expanded support services for Xray Enterprise users including unlimited storage for Xray attachments, increased API call limits up to 200 calls per minute, that is important for Xray Cloud users, 24/7 enterprise support with faster SLAs, 2 proactive consultations or system checkups per year, and enhanced voting power for future feature requests. Concerning Xray Enterprise, customers ask us often the following questions I want to answer here. 1. Are there any prerequisites to use Xray Enterprise? Yes, there are. The Xray Enterprise Cloud license has to be considered as an add-on license to the Xray Cloud license, whereas the Xray Enterprise Data Center license has to be considered as an add-on license to the Xray Data Center license. Besides that, you need the respective Jira license in both scenarios. 2. Does the data center version exist? Or do I have to use the Xray Enterprise Cloud version to combine it with Xray Data Center? Yes, there is an Xray Data Center version available. In fact, it was released before the Xray Enterprise Cloud version. The Data Center version came first. However, I want to clarify one point. The Test Case Designer launches in a separate window, and this feature is cloud-based. While the Data Center license includes the Test Case Designer, this specific feature operates in the cloud. Everything else is part of the Data Center version and works as a locally hosted solution. Concerning the Xray Enterprise Cloud, the explained approach is similar. After executing, the Designer tool will be launched, and the results will be transferred to the Xray Cloud instance. Now, I will reveal the new Xray Enterprise features that will be released soon. These are the management of test environments and a set of SFA-focused reports. Xray Enterprise enhances test management by allowing you to execute tests across various environments and consolidate the results. The Test Environment Management feature will extend the Xray capabilities in the following areas. 1. Test environment definition. Specify the environments in which tests should run, such as different operating systems, browsers, or hardware configurations. 2. Test execution across multiple environments. Run tests in parallel across various environments to ensure comprehensive coverage. 3. Test results consolidation. Aggregate test outcomes from different environments into a unified view, facilitating easier analysis and reporting. By managing test environments effectively, Xray Enterprise helps ensure that your application performs as expected across all targeted platforms and configurations. Xray Enterprise will introduce environmental variables to support, e.g., the automated creation of test executions for each environment and configuration. Concerning our SFA-focused reports, SAFe, Scaled Agile Framework, is a structured approach for scaling Agile principles and practices to large organizations and complex projects. It provides a set of guidelines, best practices, and rules to align teams, ensure consistent delivery, and drive business agility at scale. Xray Enterprise will support safe standard reports like the Dependency Tracking Report, Quality Metrics Report, or Iteration Status Report, for instance. Test management shouldn't be a burden to your team. That's why over 10 million testers and 10,000 companies in 135 countries worldwide trust Xray to deliver the highest quality products faster than ever before. Break the silo between testing and development. Integrate them under the same tool set with Xray for Jira, and NUCIDA supports you to achieve that. If you like it, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and click the bell. Never forget our upcoming sessions. If you have any questions or hints, please leave a comment. Our certified QA experts will reply in time, or even produce a separate video about your topic. Please also check out our other over 200 videos about software quality. Happy testing! See you next time.